Markiplier's editor, also known as Lixian, has made some pretty interesting horror games, all of which I will be reviewing today. Mind Ripple is, as Lixian describes it, a short, experimental, psychedelic— Jesus Christ, you really gotta work on describing your games better. It's Portal with mind powers. Yeah, not like that. The game was made in 48 hours for the Global Game Jam, and if like me, you were curious how the game performed, too bad. Apparently Global Game Jam doesn't do rankings. The comments on it seem to like it though. The game starts up suddenly and without any context. The only thing you can determine is that you're a boy, likely with some kind of psychic power, judging by the huge piece of metal on your head. This is confirmed immediately after needing to use your powers to move a block onto a switch in order to disable the barrier and safely pass through, ending the tutorial and arriving at the hub. See? Portal with mind powers. I have to mention the soundtrack before I move on. Featuring a breathtakingly creative name, the track for the levels does a very good job of unnerving the player by itself, as it's essentially just a mix of every single uncomfortable noise ever heard in horror media. The weird static, creepy alien noise, the mechanical-esque droning sounds, all do a good job of unnerving the player and providing that nightmarish atmosphere the game has. Meanwhile, the hub music is suspiciously lighter, almost inviting, but then it sneaks in these deeper notes and eerie thuds, almost like it's hiding something. The only complaint I have about the track is that it doesn't loop properly, meaning there's always going to be an awkward pause whenever it ends. The hub itself is filled with some generic horror elements such as bloody handprints on the elevator in the middle, and eyes staring at you from the darkness beyond the window. Also, these two seemingly charred corpses just chilling at each side of the room. Interacting with the one on the left takes you to one of the game's 2 levels, filled with dead grass and gravestones, all the while a psychedelic wave effect loops in place of the background. Immediately on your left is a portal that will take you back to the hub, as well as a cube which you can use to proceed further. This level has one puzzle that is basically just an extended version of the one in the tutorial. Step 1. Pick up cube. Step 2. Put cube on button. Step 3. Stand on other button. Step 4. Pick up other cube. Step 5. Activate all 3 buttons. After doing this, the ground below you seems to collapse, allowing you to pick up a weird glowing disc of sorts and concluding the first level of the game. Going back to the hub, you can see one of the 2 lights above the elevator now lit, indicating that you need one more disc for it to open. Interacting with the second body, you are taken to the next level, and unlike the last one, the portal to the hub is nowhere to be found. In this level, you start off by playing what is essentially this game's version of Scary Maze game, no jumpscare included. Proceeding forward, you come across a river of blood, which plot twist is actually acid that will disintegrate you upon contact. As soon as you place the cube on top of the water, it will quickly zip to the right, so you need to be quick to react. Additionally, in order to get past all the lasers in the area, you need to be extremely precise with the timing when dropping the cube, as if you mess it up even a little bit, you will either get fried or the cube will simply drift away. After making it past the river and dropping down into the abyss, always a good sign, you come across a puzzle that almost made me go bald from stress. Basically, it involves putting a cube on top of a button in order to lower a pillar so you can proceed. Sounds simple, right? So what's the problem? The problem comes in when you have to put the cube on top of the button furthest to the left, then quickly pick it up and make it past the 3rd pillar without being crushed to death. The issue is that this is simply too fast, and after several attempts I figured out that it was due to their movement speed being tied to the game's FPS, and seeing as I have an actual PC and not a potato, I was likely far above the intended 60 FPS. This is also the reason why the previous puzzle was so difficult, which to be fair I didn't even mind because it only made it more fun. But for this puzzle, it made it quite literally impossible, forcing me to go into Nvidia control panel and limit the FPS myself. The final area is by far the hardest. It's a mix of riding cubes over the river of acid while dodging lasers. Basically Frogger, or that one mobile game ripoff everyone used to play when I was a kid, but instead of getting hit by a train, you end up getting cut in half by a laser instead.
Fatality.
After making it past the area, you pick up yet another one of those floating discs, unlocking the elevator in the hub, which then rolls the credits of the game. I definitely wish the puzzles were a bit more creative, and having to limit the FPS myself to make the game playable is a bit of an oopsie, but overall for a game made in 48 hours by 2 people, pretty decent. The soundtrack and visuals absolutely nail the feeling of being trapped in a nightmare, and that's where all of its horror comes from. In fact, I would wager most people wouldn't even call this a horror game since it lacks enemies or any classic horror tropes such as jumpscares, but to me, the vibes alone absolutely make it one. Do It For Me is a psychological horror platformer originally made for the Brackeys Game Jam number 2 in just 24 hours with the theme Love is Blind. Similar to the last game, this one also features a pixelated art style. It was originally released in February 2019, but later got a full version featuring a bunch of improvements as well as 2 new endings. It is also the version of the game that I will be covering today. The game opens with this slightly menacing art of a little girl. I looked into her eyes. I couldn't say no.
Do it for me,
she said. And so I did. Similar to a lot of other platformers, you start the game in a grassy area, the girl from earlier standing on top of a ledge, observing your every action. The OST for this game isn't as interesting as the last game, so there isn't much I can say about it besides it being just decent all around. The game features basic platformer controls and unlike the last game also features some enemies, all black silhouettes with orange eyes and mouths, while also having collectible hearts placed throughout the levels. Interestingly enough, the enemies don't try to attack you at all, simply walking back and forth causing you to restart the area upon contact, which I'm sure is just an insignificant detail that you definitely shouldn't keep in mind. Your character's weapon of choice is a simple knife, which you can use to one-tap any enemies you come across. Be warned, however, as killing enemies can result in certain platforms disappearing, which can prevent you from getting all the hearts, the significance of which I will explain later. The levels themselves are quite basic, even more so than the previous game, so I won't be talking about them in too much detail since they are more of a backdrop for the story the game is trying to tell. After reaching a certain point, your screen will gain a CRT effect and the background OST will change to a darker one, the environment becoming less natural and even more human-made objects appearing. Whereas before you might have seen an odd locker or sink, now entire parts of buildings seem to be seeping through. Going past the area, things go back to normal however, with the exception of the human-made objects increasing in prevalence. After the mini jump scare, the CRT effects and menacing OST make a return, this time staying for good. At this point, even those who weren't paying attention will start to realize what the game is truly about, as the natural environments of the game permanently shift to those of a school hallway, the head of one of the enemies being replaced by a person, followed by several more, and at the end of the hallway, her. I looked into her eyes. I realized what I had done.
Do it for me,
she said, and I did. Not all of it, but I did. Teenagers dead because of me. How can I live with myself? I wanted to blame her, but it's my fault. The blood is on my hands. I hear the sirens outside.
Please, don't do it,
she screams in fear.
Hands in the air.
She played me. She used me. Before the cops get close to me, she whispers,
You should have killed all of them.
The puppet ending is the closest to a neutral ending in the game, achieving it by getting some but not all hearts as well as killing some but not all enemies. There are several other endings, but to avoid subjecting you to any more of my voice acting, I'm just going to give a short recap of what happens in each of them. The other endings can be done in any order you like, but I will cover them from top to bottom, starting with the Awake ending, which involves you not getting any hearts while also avoiding every single enemy. In this ending, you call the police on the girl and everyone survives, the closest you can get to a good ending in this game. If at any point you accidentally collect a heart or kill an enemy, you can easily restart the area by pressing R, so no worries about messing up. The blind love ending is achieved by killing all enemies and collecting every single heart, resulting in you and the girl killing everyone in the building. Next up is the psychopath ending, in which you need to kill every single enemy without collecting any hearts at all. This results in you not only killing the students, but also the girl herself. Lastly, the innocent love ending, where you do the exact opposite of the psychopath ending, collecting all hearts but not killing a single enemy, which ends up in you not killing anyone but also not calling the police due to being in love with the girl. The girl then decides to take things into her own hands, starting with you. This is definitely not what I expected when I booted up the game. Props to Lixian for tackling a subject as heavy as this, and while I'm not gonna give him the credit of actually doing a good job since the game is too short and plot not grounded enough to actually convey anything, it definitely doesn't go as far as being offensive or making light of the subject, since it still left me disturbed by the reveal at the end, even if it was more for shock factor rather than having an actually meaningful point. Overall, this was definitely the weakest game for me, since the gameplay was too simple for my liking, involving nothing more than remembering which platforms disappear when enemies are killed. The story itself was also quite weak for me, as I explained previously, but then again, considering the game was only made in 24 hours, it's understandable. Next game. In Late Night Mop, you play as someone requested to clean an apartment in the middle of the night. A seemingly simple and easy to achieve task at first.
Hey, sorry for calling you so late, but would you mind going by the house and do a quick cleanup? I made a bit of a mess and I need the house cleaned as I have some guests coming over in the morning. Okay, thank you.
Starting at the entrance, you walk forwards as lights turn on, revealing your trusty mop, as well as a stain on the floor, which you proceed to clean up. The game follows this simple loop of cleaning up stains with your mop, while also picking up garbage and disposing of it. There are two places where you can dispose of garbage: trash cans and plastic bins. You can also press tab at any time to see which rooms you've already cleaned and which ones still need to be done. After cleaning the kitchen, living room, and the bathroom, you move onto the hallway since the office seems to be locked for now and another door near the entrance is currently blocked. At the end of the hallway is the key to the office, which you pick up, only to see this thing staring back at you. Moving to the office, you pick up the master bedroom key and clean up the last stain on the floor. Fun fact, this jumpscare is completely missable should you decide to go for the nope ending. Alternatively, you could just not look up and avoid the scare that way, but you're not a coward, are you? After cleaning the office, you move on to the bedroom, where you might notice a door blocked by an immovable dresser. This is the same door we saw in the hallway earlier and seemingly has no purpose throughout the game. Next to it, however, is the bathroom, a substance seeping out from underneath the door. Entering it, you find a bunch of blood on the floor, surrounded by candles. Possibly an altar of sorts where someone was sacrificed. The blood in front of the door likely being a result of their body getting dragged in or out of the room. Cleaning up the blood marks the end of your shift, letting you finally go home. But just as you close in on the exit, it wasn't me. You should go check that out. One last objective pops up.
It might be a little too late to be saying this, but maybe don't go into my house. I remember I kinda summoned a demon and totally forgot about it. Anyways, hope you're good and healthy and alive. Okay, bye.
Aside from this ending, the game features an additional two. Before trying to get these though, it's best if we turn on the fast mopping and trash cans galore cheats, just to make things a little faster. The first ending involves you leaving as soon as you witness the first scare. Yeah, no. Which ironically just ends up with you getting jump scared again.
Well, glad to know I could count on you to get the job done. Oh wait, you didn't! You made me look like a fool. Thanks a lot. Oh, and also, you're fired.
While the second requires you to play the game as usual, but instead of investigating the noise at the end, simply turning around and leaving.
Hey, thank you so much for cleaning the house. I really appreciate it. Although you did break a very special and very expensive antique and left all the pieces for me to clean, so I'll be deducting that from your payment. So yeah, thanks for that.
3 endings, a relatively satisfying gameplay loop, and competent scares. Look, I know it sounds like I'm shitting on the game, but just because the game isn't a work of art doesn't mean it's bad. In fact, out of all the games that I played today, this is by far the one I had the most fun with. One of the things I like the most about this game is how the horror and comedy are both present, but separate. Most horror media that attempt to have comedy usually end up failing miserably at the former, as the comedy usually ends up taking away from any tension the scene might have had. Horror and comedy seem to be two genres that just don't mix all that well, but when you have them separate like this, horror followed by comedy, they just work together great. The horror serves to amplify the comedy, as merely knowing that it's over leaves you freshly relaxed and relieved, which is the perfect time to throw in a joke in order to further lighten the mood. Funnily enough, the biggest tell for this game being good is the fact that it got a Roblox ripoff and even managed to inspire another developer to make a similar game. In fact, the only other indie games that I can really think of that managed to achieve the same thing are things like Poppy's Playtime, Five Nights at Freddy's, and Iron Lung. Speaking of which, Sinking Iron is a game heavily inspired by Iron Lung and Five Nights at Freddy's. In the game, you play as the apprentice of an amateur diver as you investigate a strong earthquake that occurred nearby, clearly taking inspiration from the premise of Iron Lung by mostly taking place in a submarine deep underwater. The game starts with the diver urging you to get into the sub. Unfortunately for him though, there's an adorable cat along the way that you simply can't ignore. Moving down the stairs, you pick up your toolbox and enter the sub. The submarine itself is quite small and claustrophobic, featuring an inaccessible engine room, a ladder to the outside, and 3 windows, which you should keep in mind for later. After fixing the wall with your hammer, fuck's sake, Lixian. Yeah, this game isn't free of issues either, sadly. The mouse becomes unlocked whenever you alt-tab, simply press escape and it should be fixed. After fixing the wall with your hammer and the leak with your welding gun, you finally descend into the deep dark. This is where the game begins proper. Your job is to keep repairing the ship as you sink deeper, the red bit signifying your progress. The gameplay loop is surprisingly nerve-wracking as you panic trying to keep the ship whole. Not too hard though, especially for a pro gamer like myself. After reaching the bottom, you get a close-up encounter with the sea monster you got a glimpse of earlier. Now's when things get a bit harder. Not only do you need to keep repairing the ship like usual, you also have to use the buttons next to the windows to keep the monster away, instilling an even greater sense of panic than before. The premise of Sinking Iron clearly borrows a lot from Iron Lung, with the whole being stuck underwater in a submarine thing, but its gameplay is primarily inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's. Both games have you constantly checking multiple things and acting appropriately in response. Whereas in FNAF, you would monitor the cameras to check the positions of the animatronics, closing the doors whenever they got too close to you, along with the music box and various other mechanics that came after the second game. Here, you need to be constantly aware of the damage being done to your sub and manage your priorities when it comes to which should be dealt with first. Not to mention how the flashing light mechanic is pretty much one-to-one taken from FNAF, except here the light actually makes the monster piss off. Arriving at the surface, the submarine is finally grabbed and sunk by the monster, its eye later being visible under the water. Making your way up top, the monster grabs the captain and drags him under the ocean as your character desperately tries to escape. Though I'm not quite sure where they were running considering there is no life raft or anything attached to the ship. And with that, you sink to the bottom of the ocean along with the ship. Or do you? You see, after finishing the game once, you get access to a hard mode. Beware, however, that this mode can be extremely difficult and somewhat RNG based, but I found that as long as you keep your priorities straight, that being dealing with the monster first, leak second, and walls third, and don't panic, it is manageable. Beating the mode unlocks an extended version of the ending in which you wake up at the beach after the sinking of the Iron, and after a short walk, Kitty, you make it to the other end of the island, with monoliths leading up to the ocean and the game ending with you witnessing the arrival of an eldritch being. Yeah, there's nothing really to analyze here, it's just kinda random.
Stand ready for my arrival.
You also get some skins for your tools, one for beating the game on normal mode and one for hard mode. Still waiting for the update that lets us add custom ones. And that's Sinking Iron, overall a pretty decent concept and execution. You might remember how I mentioned that Mind Ripple should have been advertised as Portal with mind powers, and while that was a bit of a stretch, this game is quite literally Five Nights at Freddy's meets Iron Lung, and as any indie game developer will tell you, one of the easiest ways to make an interesting sounding game is to combine two concepts or games into one, just like Far Cry 3 did.
He's in a foreign country, he's probably jet-lagged. Clearly not a professional in any way, shape, or form, but
Feels
look,
like Skyrim with guns.
he's excited. And excited people tend to say really dumb things, especially when trying to say something nice.
An actually good example of this is Palworld, with its whole Pokemon with guns concept. Obviously, the game still has to be good to keep the players there, and Sinking Iron does exactly that, as it's not only a good concept but also a very decent execution, with its very tense gameplay, especially in hard mode. Also, it has a cute Portuguese cat in it, so it gets a 10 out of 10. Dumpster Night is a little different than the other games I covered so far, mainly by the engine it was made in. That being Roblox. In the game, you play as some random dude taking out the trash in front of his house. Look, I know how it sounds like, but this is the best game by far. It's about time.
Are you sure?
You start the game in a lobby of sorts, its main purpose being to thank the people who supported the game in Lixian, while also letting you see how many achievements, aka endings, you have left. You start the game proper in front of your house. You pick up a trash bag, take it outside to the nearby dumpster, repeat. The dumpster will eventually start moving further and further away, making the back and forth longer, and whereas in most games I would find this annoying, somehow Lixian has made this one of the most nerve-wracking experiences I had playing an indie game, by constantly making it feel as if you're being watched, which you are by the way. Making your way back one last time, you grab the final bag. A car speeds in front of you and crashes. You decide to quickly check up on the situation, coming across the site of the accident, a chalk outline being visible in the ground, besides the spilled dumpster. Running away as fast as you can, you navigate the blockades, only to run straight into the one place directly in front of your door. Ending 3. An eye for an eye. Unlike the previous games, the design of this monster isn't just meant to be scary. Aside from its messed up face, the rest of its body looks to be wrapped in a trash bag, much like the ones we are carrying. And considering the Y text that popped up earlier, and the name of the ending, we can only surmise that we are the ones responsible. Either through a car accident, out of which we came alive and the other person didn't, or straight up murder, since we could guess that the design is meant to reflect the trash bags that we are carrying to the dumpster. Now then, to cover the other 5 endings and see which theory is closer. Ending 4, the procrastinating ending in which you decide to go back to your house without dumping the bags, while mostly comical, does give an alternate possibility to consider, mainly through its description. You decided to do this tomorrow. You can't avoid this forever though. Can you imagine the smell? Now the smell it is referring to could just be our everyday trash, but it does also further expand the possibility of the player having intentionally taken the life of the thing haunting him. Also worth noting is that this ending becomes impossible after the dumpster moves due to it resulting in ending 5? I don't think so. You've seen enough horror games to know exactly what's going on and you're not dealing with it. Although, you already started, might as well finish it. you can avoid this forever. Similarly, if you pick up the last bag, this ending will become unavailable as well, the door prompt simply stating, finish what you started. Ending 6 also seems to somewhat confirm our involvement, as if you simply decide to walk left at any point, you will get the fugitive ending. You can't run away from what you have done. Ending 1 seems to do something similar, being the same as Ending 3 with the difference of you actually dumping the last bag and escaping. Congratulations, you did it. You left your little secret in the dumpster and no one will suspect a thing. Ending 2 is similar to Ending 1, only difference being that instead of dumping the last bag, you carry it with you inside your home, the result being almost perfect.
Looks like you brought a piece of me into your home. This time I hit and you run.
A clear reference to a hit and run, a criminal act of causing a traffic collision and not stopping afterwards to check up on the victim and call for help. This means our character most likely hit the victim with their car, accidentally or on purpose, only to stop and attempt to cover up what they did. That is of course if any of the game's events are real in the first place and not just all in the protagonist's head. Out of all the games we talked about today, this one definitely has to be my favorite. While I usually tend to value gameplay more than anything else, with horror I tend to focus more on the atmospheres, sound effects, story, and the scares themselves, all of which this game does great. The improvements of the story in particular compared to Do It For Me is really refreshing. Both games where you play as someone who has or is committing horrible acts, but the story in this game just sat better with me, likely due to being presented in a more subtle way, which makes it feel way more grounded, even with all the paranormal stuff going on. Additionally, whereas in Do It For Me the twist is revealed immediately after getting your first ending and the story doesn't really get expanded by getting the others, Dumpster Night actually had some room for theorizing, which really does keep you motivated to get all the endings and opens the game up to more community discussion. If you're one of the people wondering why I've been wearing a hat only at the start and now at the end of the video, it's because this actually took quite a few months to make, and like the idiot that I am, I completely forgot to record these parts up until now. And as you can see, my hair has grown quite a bit since then, hence the hat. We started out with something that most people wouldn't even call a horror game and ended with something that's actually a pretty good one and improves on a lot of aspects from Lixian's previous games, which is something most AAA developers couldn't even claim. And yeah, despite all the praise that I give them, obviously these games aren't incredible or anything, but despite this, I feel like these kinds of games still go completely overlooked at times in favor of bigger indie titles, and while those definitely deserve the attention that they get, I feel like these kinds of smaller indie games are still definitely worth discussing and are interesting in their own way, which is primarily why I made this video in the first place.